Welcome to the Speak with People podcast. My name is Jason Raitz. I'll be your host, and this podcast exists to help you improve your communication skills. Whether you communicate one-on-one, to a team, from a stage, or from behind a screen, we know that when we improve our communication skills as leaders, it exponentially changes everything. It improves our relationships, it improves our leadership skills, and it improves our business skills. So let's get ready to dive into this next episode. Well, have you ever wanted to write a book? Well, what has stopped you? Maybe you're like me and you've been in a rut for a couple of years with your writing and some frustration has developed, or maybe you keep changing what you thought you wanted to write about. Maybe you're trying to figure out how to continue to move forward. And then how can you use your book then to grow your business? How can you use that book to tell the world what your business is about? Well, I am beyond excited for this Speak with People podcast episode because I get to interview Melanie Johnson. She is actually the author of Strategic Writing System, How to Write Your Book to Build Your Business. Off the recording, we just connected because we're both lifelong Michiganders. We may not live there now, but we both still love Michigan. She is the owner and founder of Elite Online Publishing, published over 3,000 books. It's just amazing as I've read through her bio. I'm not going to tell you everything, but just an honor to have her on the podcast. Melanie, welcome to the Speak with People podcast.
Thanks, Jason. It's so nice to be here. And gosh, having a fellow Michigan person, we were both saying, are you still connected to Michigan? I'm like, well, once you're Michigan, you're pure Michigan, as they say.
That's right.
It's just nice to meet another person from Michigan.
I love it. Fantastic. Well, before we hop in, and I know, your expertise and your life story is going to be such a inspiration, such a boost, and so practical for so many of our listeners. Why don't you give us just a little bit of your story? What got you to the place you're on now? Kind of dig under the surface for us a little bit.
Sure. And remember, it's not where you start, it's where you finish. And your journey is not always in your control, which I think is so important. So you have to be able to roll with the river. The river's current may take you somewhere you didn't even expect. So, I started out in Michigan, from Michigan State. I graduated. I'm going back because you're a U of M guy, but I still have blue in my blood as well. So, and I wasn't sure what I was going to do out of college. I was a communications major. So I did the auto shows. That was big in Detroit. So yes. I was an auto show model for a while, traveling around, and that was a blast. But then I thought, I got to do something more serious and decided to do broadcasting. So got my first job at Channel 20, became a news anchor there, and then learned a lot of different things about broadcasting, how to do PR for a TV station, develop children's shows. So I would say I tell my kids, hey, if someone's going to pay you to learn, wouldn't that be cool? Take your first job at a place that you like. I want to know what they do and just learn everything that you can. Latch on to people that you think are experts that you can learn. And my dad used to tell me that all the time. I ended up building a TV station with my former husband, and he just kept saying, learn everything, Melanie, learn as much as you can. So be smart, because what if something does happen to your husband and you have to run the business? So I was all about trying to learn every aspect of the business when I was doing that and growing the company. So that led us to building a station here in Houston. Never thought I'd leave Michigan, but there I was in Texas. And, thank goodness Texas was such a warm, inviting, friendly place. I couldn't have landed in a better place, to tell you. And I'm still here, if that tells you anything. And then did learn everything. Ran everything at the station, was vice president of Johnson Broadcasting. And you learn the ups and downs of business. It's not all this easy thing that's going to happen. And then during that time, 2008 happened. My marriage ended, and that was tumultuous. And so then I had to reinvent myself. But during that process, it took me 7 years to get out of that whole situation. And he filed for bankruptcy. So VRBO and Airbnb did not exist. And I had two giant homes. I mean, giant. One was 25,000 square feet
Wow.
here in Houston. One was 13,000 square feet up on Walloon Lake, which you might know Walloon Lake in Petoskey, Michigan.
Yep.
And but VRBO just came out, and a friend of mine said, maybe you could rent the house on VRBO. And the realtors all told me, you can't rent that house. It's too big. No one's going to want it. You want more money than anybody else. I'm like, well, of course I want more money. It's the biggest house. So a realtor rented 1 week for me, and I put it on VRBO, and I sold out the entire summer. And I was charging anywhere from $10,000 to $15,000 a week because I had upsells. A doctor's wife who was a friend of mine said, "Oh, don't include the master bedroom. Charge extra for that. Don't include this. Charge extra for that." And I was like, "That's brilliant." And
Wow.
then I thought, well, maybe I wonder what the rental market looks like in Houston. And again, this was like 2009, 2010. So when I went on VRBO, it was apartments, 1 bedroom, 2 bedroom places, maybe a townhouse. There were no houses. So I really stuck my neck out and put my house out there. And I remember I got my first rental for a weekend for $10,000. But the moral of my story is I remember when I first put it out there, I wasn't getting any traction. And I asked myself, Melanie, are you ready? If someone wanted to rent your house tomorrow, is the house ready? And the answer was no, because I didn't have all my lockdown closets, didn't have the house streamlined. So I went through, streamlined everything. And I said, okay, if someone calls me tomorrow, I'm ready. And literally like a week later, I got my first rental. So I tell you, that's like the lesson also in business. Are you ready for success?
Wow.
Are you ready to get 1,000 more clients tomorrow? Can you handle what you're wanting and dreaming? Do you, if you're trying to get to 7 figures or you're trying to get that promotion, are you really ready for it? Is your family ready? Is your time and schedule ready? Do you have the skills for it? So you need to ask yourself that question, because sometimes you have not cleared the way to get what you're asking for. So I think that was like an important lesson along my journey. I use that same thing with my son. He wanted a new car. And I'm like, well, we got to sell your old car. We got to sell your truck. And it looks like a piece of doo-doo. So kept getting after him, and the new car wasn't coming. So finally he got the whole car detailed, cleaned, ready to go. And then it was ready to sell, got it repaired of what he needed. And then it happened, right? You have to make yourself ready for that. So, and then, if you would have asked me in 2012, Melanie, do you want to start a book publishing company? I would have said, no, like, I don't know. No, that's not, I know about real estate. I know about digital marketing. I know about television, book publishing, not so much. But during my journey to realize I thought TV was going to be a dinosaur, which it finally is really becoming a dinosaur over the air TV. And so I wanted to learn more about the internet. And so during my journey, I did learn how to publish books. I published a couple books on my own to help with a rental I had down in the Dominican Republic. And then at these conferences, some of the same people show up. So there was kind of a group of us that we'd see each other all the time. And one of them was Jen Foster. And we both had the month of June open. It was like the first time she wasn't going to have her kids. So she loved this timeshare I had in the Dominican Republic. She's like, we need to go to the Dominican, but we need to make money if we're going to go. So on the breaks of the conference, we came up with this idea of doing a book writing retreat. We sold it. We went down there, had a great time for a week. It was fabulous. Came back, published the books, made them #1 bestsellers. And the next thing I know, people were calling me and text messaging. I didn't know you did books. Can you go to lunch with me? I've been thinking about writing a book. So next thing I knew, we had like 10 or 15 people that I had contacts, and so did she. So I said, hey, I think we have like a little business here, but we both had other businesses. I was doing real estate, like, tearing down houses, building new townhouses in their place. Wow. She had a digital marketing and website business. So it was a side hustle for a while for both of us. Then the real estate market fell down here. And next thing I knew, our side hustle became our main hustle. So, God has a way of just leading you down a certain path. And then here I am 8 years later, almost 9 years later, published over 3,000 books.
Wow. Wow, what a journey. Oh my goodness. And I love that you started it off by saying, remember, it's not where you start, it's where you finish. I mean, so many leaders, They just get stuck in the, well, it didn't start right, or I don't know where to start. I mean, what amazing advice just to kind of lead with. So thank you for that. Wow.
Sure.
That is
Great.
just incredible. Oh, well, boy, I love that. Okay. I do need to ask you a little before we dive in, because we've got some really good conversation to have about writing and getting a book for your business and those kind of things. But as I was kind of doing some research and learning who you were, I was really also fascinated to learn that you were the first girl to receive a varsity letter in a boys' sport in the state of Michigan.
Yeah.
Like how did that come about? I mean, wow, just one more chapter of pretty spectacular.
Well, I shared the story that my brother was a wrestler, so he was a very good wrestler. He's in the Wrestling Hall of Fame, a collegiate wrestler at University of Michigan, and he's 5 years older than me, so I got drugged to every wrestling match there was. And you got to think about, like, in the 70s, there was no girls wrestling. There is now, but nothing like that existed. So I thought I could just beat the pants off those boys. I knew every move. I could watched everything. I mean, that was my life. Like, I was going to meets 3 times a week, tournaments, all that stuff. And so I asked my dad in 7th grade, I was on the girls track team. And I asked my dad if I could be on the boys wrestling team. And he said, no, that's not happening. Not going to do that. So then after track in 7th grade, the girls team only had one meet the whole season. And it was like a league meet against all the other girl teams. And the boys were competing twice a week. And I'm like, well, that just doesn't seem fair. So I asked my dad, okay, what about the boys track team? So he made that happen, because I don't know if I would have just said, can I join the boys track team, it would have happened. But my dad was kind of this figure. And so I think he helped make that happen. I can't confirm or deny that, but
Right.
I think he helped with that. So I was on the boys track team, and I ran hurdles and I ran the relays. And the hurdles, I always placed usually second, sometimes third. And then the kid who always beat me was on our team. And finally, I beat him one time and took first place. But I got enough, you had to place to get enough points to get a letter, which I did. And then next year, 5 girls joined the boys track team.
Wow.
So,
How
and
about
I'll
that?
tell you, and they did not give me my letter at the banquet. They gave it to me, like he gave it to me in the hallway. Like, Melanie, I can't really make this like really
Oh
public,
my
but
goodness.
here's your letter. I was like, okay. But then they told me that you're the only girl that's ever gotten a
Wow.
letter in boys sport in the state of Michigan. So I thought that was pretty cool.
That's amazing. Oh, amazing. I love that. I love that. Okay. A lot of our listeners, they have an idea to write a book. And they kind of go back and forth with, okay, is my idea any good? Will this help people? I think it makes sense. But then they just get stuck. What's some starting advice? What are some things you would say to those, wannabe authors that are just, they're having a tough time kind of moving forward?
Yeah. And let's focus on like a business book, right?
Yeah,
That's
a
what
business book.
we're
Yes.
And I will tell you, you're not alone. First of all, I can't tell you how many authors, I would say most authors who are at that stage are saying the exact same things you just said, Jason. I'm not sure what I should write about. Is it worthy? Will anybody care? I'm not sure. So let me dive in and dissect that kind of piece by piece. So first of all, your story and your way to give information is different than anybody else's. Right? You're like, well, let's say it's a leadership book or a book on sales. Oh my gosh, there's thousands of books on leadership. There are thousands of books on sales. But no one has your experience or your way of saying things. And I tell people there's churches on every corner, especially here in Texas. There's Baptist churches even everywhere, right?
Right.
And they're all teaching out of the same book.
Right.
But I mean, I have a choice of probably, 10 churches that are within 5 miles of me right now. But you could go to one and the minister just doesn't resonate with the way he's explaining that to you. But another one really hits home and you get it and the light bulbs go on for you. So it's the same thing with the book, that your voice is different and the way you're explaining it is different to anybody else. The other thing people really struggle with is, gosh, I've got such an amazing story. My life story has been all of these things that I've overcome and done. And then I've got my business part, but I don't know which story I should tell. So I would say with that, we like to combine those two. Tell the business story and what you're teaching, but give us the real life examples of what happened to you that illustrate those points. whether it's like you're doing a sales book, maybe it was a sales call that you had, or maybe it was something that you learned when you were a kid that gave you the chutzpah to do and learn what you got to where you are now. So you can intertwine those personal stories within your business teachings, I would say. And you can do other people's stories too. It might be a client of yours, it might be a friend of yours, it might be somebody famous that you can reflect that they went through the same thing to get you where you're going. And then think of what the problems are that your ideal client is always trying to overcome. What is it that you solve? What are the top things that you solve? If you take 5 minutes and say, what are the top 10 things that I solve, that I know that I have the answers to, or that are most frequently things that my services, my expertise can solve for them? And then I have the formula that I always say is, I call it the 10 by 10 by 3. So it's and you can do more than 10, but what are the most frequently asked questions you get all the time? So you're making a sales call, you're asking someone to buy your services or know what your expertise is. And what are they asking you all the time? And so write all those down. And then when you're doing the answers to those, the answers, the other 10, which is the answers, what is what are stories that tie in that illustrate with that? Okay. Then there's the should ask questions. What are the questions they should be asking you if they knew what you know? Like if it's a real estate question, they're like, well, I need to buy a house in Houston. What's the area that has the best prices? And they should say, well, what you should be asking me is what area has the best school system? You know, or what area has the least amount of property tax that has the best school system? You should be asking me, right? So what are the things that you know that are different? So it's those frequently asked questions, but those should ask questions of what you know that they don't know. And the other thing really is take content and repurpose it. So, Jason, like you have this great podcast, and I noticed some of the podcast episodes are just you on it giving content. Well, that content can be transcribed and utilized in a book. So I always say, like, if you do have a podcast or you're writing blogs, write them with a purpose so that oh my gosh, I'm going to start writing blogs about this topic, and this is going to be the first chapter of my book. It's going to be the second chapter of my book. What we do to help clients from our company is it's time that business people are like, I don't have the time to write this book because it's this giant thing. So we've developed a VIP book creation day where you come and spend a day with us. We decide what your book should be about, what the best thing is for your business that was going to serve your business to get new clients, your perfect avatar of who you're talking to, because that's another important thing is who are you talking to for this book? Don't just say, oh, it's like we talked about who the demographic was for your podcast, that, oh, it's, like 30 to 45-year-old manager. Well, let's hone in on that person. Is it a male or a female that we want to talk to in this book? And it's for the purpose of the book. Like all those people could buy the book, but, okay, so maybe it's a guy. Let's say he's 38. Is he married? Is he single? How many kids does he have? What kind of house does he live in? What kind of problems does he face? All of like really telling me who this is. And you might even go, oh my gosh, the perfect guy is really my neighbor who lives 10 doors down from me. And this is how he lives. This is the car he drives. So we're going to talk to Joe in our book. And so every time that you're stuck, you'd say, well, what does Joe want to know? We're talking to Joe. Remember, don't get off on these wild tangents. We're talking to him to solve his problems for the book. So anyways, back to the VIP day. At the end of the day, your book is fully structured and you have anywhere from like 7 to 10,000 words in the chapters for your book. And so you've got almost a 30-year book could be written at the end of that day. And then there's notations of what's left in each chapter. Gosh, you need a story here. You need some data here. You need more content in this place, more detail here. So then it gives you that roadmap. So that's one thing that we developed because so many people are where you are. It's time. It's this big, in front of me, like, I gotta do it. But it's nice to have someone come alongside of you, whether it's a book coach, an editor, and a publishing team that helps you stay accountable and get the whole thing moving, that has the tools. So, you can do it on your own, but just make sure you're watching a lot of videos, that you're getting tips like I just said. Start off with those little chunks. And I was the best way to eat an elephant is one bite at a time. So, figure out who you're writing the book to, number one. Get a structure of what the problems are you want to solve, whether it's the frequently asked questions, should ask questions, or the biggest problems you're solving. Um, and then create a chapter structure. And everybody that we do is structure is a little bit different depending on the content of the book. But for an example, it might be the structure is you start with a story, and then you have the skill that they're going to learn, then you have some data, and then you follow up with another story. That could be a structure for your chapters,
Right.
and each chapter would follow that same structure along the way.
Wow, I love that. What for the business owner, or could be a potential, maybe they're a speaker or maybe even an influencer. We have leaders kind of all cross listening to the podcast. For those people, I've been told more times than I can count, Jason, you're a keynote speaker. A book will give you credibility. And so how exactly, can you give us, you give us a little bit, can you give us a little bit more into what a book can actually do to help drive, your business promotion, your business sales, some of that kind of stuff?
Well, you asked about a speaker first. So we have an author coming out soon, Connie Chung, and she's with the Washington Speakers Bureau. And they just basically told her, like, you need to have a book. Like, we can't promote you any more than we are unless you have a book. So she did our VIP day, and she's been promoting that she has a book. So she's got the whole machine going. And I can't even tell you the doors. Her book's not even out yet. And what is it? There's the leadership conference that happens in Chicago every year. I don't know if you're familiar with it.
Yeah, the Global Leadership Summit. Yeah.
Yeah. So because her book is coming out and she's let them know, they have contacted her and want to support her book and have her at the conference. And her book's not even out yet.
Wow.
Okay. So hello, that's one big advantage. So and then people say, when should I start promoting your book? I'm like, the minute you start writing it, that you let people know and decide what it's about. Her advantage is that she already knew what it's about, had it structured. So then we could start to have a social media campaign. So at least know what you're writing about and have your book structured, because then you can talk about that on social media. So that's doors that open for you. And when you're speaking now, when you have a book, you can charge higher speaking fees because you're going to be a best-selling author. And for her, she'll be an award-winning best-selling author because she's working with us. And I always say having that title, like, I'm Miss Michigan, which I tend not to tell a lot of people, but I have that title for the rest of my life. I earned it. So I get that title. Just like when you become an author or a #1 international best-selling author or award-winning author, you have that title. I was looking at I think it was Inc. magazine was having some speaking conference, and I was looking through at the speakers, and every single one of them said best-selling author on there. So, like, if you want to join that group, if you want to be part of that, club, then you need to have that. So let's step into outside of speakers. Speaker, you can sell books while you're there. You can include books in your speaker fee while you're there. So, and every time you get books into people's hands, it can open doors for new business for you and new people that are following you. So more books in more people's hands creates a bigger circle for you. Insider tip, every book should have a call to action that takes them to your website that you can get their contact information as well. Okay, so now let's step into outside of that. So one of the things that people don't even realize that's so simple is when you publish a book on Amazon and Ingram, which means that it's going to be published at Walmart, Target.com, 40,000 other places, Barnes & Noble. So don't just be on Amazon. Now, all of a sudden, you have SEO from those giant companies. So think about, people are paying for SEO for their website. I want people to find my website. Well, if I put your name in now, Jason, all of a sudden Amazon will come up on the first page, not in one place, but two places, once for your book and once for your author page. It'll come up from Barnes & Noble. It'll come up from Walmart.com. And once you've done the investment of publishing a book, it's there forever. I mean, I don't think Amazon's going anywhere anytime soon. I don't think Walmart's going anywhere anytime soon. But you'll have that momentum going of that SEO. So that's just like a simple thing. But then I tell people, I use this foot in the door strategy. My business partner wrote a book called Books to Bucks, and it has all these tips for how to make money with your book. But one of my favorite is you're trying to get a new client. You can't get their email. They're not going to take your calls. You just can't get a response from them. So a foot in the door strategy is to send them your book. Well, a gatekeeper is not going to open a package that's personal to them. You can either send it from Amazon, but it's better if you can send it yourself, because then you can put a personal note in there and say, we'll use Joe's name again. Hey, Joe, I think that there's a lot of great things I can do for your company. Turn to page 35. I think this could save you thousands of dollars or make you thousands of dollars. You know, they're going to turn to page 35. They can't help themselves, right? And you could even do a personal video with a video link. And hey, I sent a personal video to you, and you could put a link there. So they're going to turn to page 35 and they're going to go, wow, I know who this guy is. They may even thumb through the book. They're going to look at the back of the book. They're going to look at the front of the book. They might read your bio. And guess what? That book is not going to hit the trash can. A flyer hits the trash can. Maybe a letter that you sent is going to hit the trash can, but a book is not, because it has a high perceived value. It may sit on their desk for a long time. I have a great story of a guy who did this, and the future client put it on his nightstand, and it sat on his nightstand for a year. He never opened the book, but a year later said, you know what? I've been staring at your face and your book for over a year. I'm just going to hire you. So what else has that like, I have a Tony Robbins book on my nightstand right now. I'm looking at Tony Robbins' face every day. I haven't opened the book yet. I'm guilty of the same thing. But now let's take that and put it on steroids. Let's say it's a company, a mid-sized company, and they've got 50 employees. So let's say you send 50 books to everybody, and they all arrive within a day of each other. Now everybody's opening your book, and your book is on everybody's desk at this company. Do you think that would make an impact? Do you think you'll be a conversation? Now let's think about the investment to do that. If it's a paperback book, 150 pages, about $2.50 plus shipping. Let's say you're even $5 in, tops, $5 in times 50, right? I mean, $250 investment. What other advertising can give you that impact for $250? Not much. I mean, you got the investment of publishing your book and working with a publisher and all that, but that's going to last you for years. So if you amortize that over 20 years and say, how many new clients did I get over that? What's the value of a new client? If a new client is $3,000, $5,000, maybe $100,000 a new client is, but then even what's the lifetime value of that client? So that's just a couple of the ways that it work for you.
Wow. That's absolutely incredible. That is, boy, yeah, so many things to think through. So as someone gets their material together, if they want to go it by themselves, right? They want to write it all and edit it all and try to figure out Amazon and all that kind of stuff. And then there's, the options of self-publishing companies and hybrid publishing. Give us some advice, down those routes, which is the best option to be able to put out the best product to be able to help people.
All right. So I would say if you don't have an advertising marketing budget to invest in using a publisher and you're doing the DIY thing, I always equate it to this. It's like you're remodeling your house and you're going to gut the bathrooms and you're gutting the kitchen and you're moving some plumbing around and some electric around. Do you want to learn how to be the tile layer, the electrician, and the plumber? And you can do all that, right? It's going to take you longer to do it. And you're probably going to have some mistakes where, the faucet is squirting everywhere, or the tile, stuff like that's going to happen. So if you have the time and the inclination to learn a new skill and have it take longer, then do that. And it's an investment to have someone publish it with you, right? So, or you hire a general contractor, which would be someone like me, who already has the best subcontractors, who already knows the ins and outs. When the troubles happen, like you submit your book to Amazon and Amazon says, No, we're spitting your book back out. And you don't really know why, because there's AI in there. We just had a client recently that we published, made him #1 bestseller, and the book got spit back out. It was just weird. So we're going to work for him because that's what we do. It's not even extra charge. We're like, well, we're going to fix this. So we're on the phone with Amazon. We're emailing them. We're making sure that this book gets back up because Amazon has new bots that they're just, I don't know what's going on over there, but they've been doing that. So you have to deal with some of that. So if you have the time, do that. Now, the road between hybrid publishers, the difference in self-publishing, the hybrid publisher is going to say, hey, listen, I'm going to charge you for my services, but then I'm going to take a portion of your royalties. And I'm going to put your book under my umbrella, meaning that I'm going to publish it under all of like my name, meaning that all their books are published under their publishing account. Versus what we do is we set up the accounts in your name. It's not under our name. We're the publisher, but if you want to go look at your royalties, Jason, you're looking at your royalties right there. If you're looking at your bank account, Amazon's directing the royalties right to your bank account versus you're calling your publisher saying, hey, did I make any royalties? And I can't see how many books I sold. So I'm not a huge fan of the hybrid because you do lose control, that they have it under their account. And we've had so many publishers or so many authors come to us that a publisher went out of business and they don't have access to their account anymore. So now they have to republish their book. Or if they want to make changes, sometimes the hybrid publisher doesn't want to make any changes. So we like to have you have total control. I kind of call it like the Taylor Swift effect, how Taylor Swift now went and republished all her music. She has control over all her intellectual property. She's getting all the royalties. So I would say either do it yourself or hire a publishing company that is, you're paying them. You might pay them a little more, but then you're getting 100% of your royalties. The book is in your account. You can do whatever you want with it. If you want to change the price, you can. If you want to do a re-upload, you can. So you have total control would be my advice. And just make sure you're looking for publishers that have a great track record, that you can see that they have really good testimonials. They've been around for a while. So really do your research on them. There was a publisher here in Houston. 30 authors got taken they gave money and they didn't get anything for it. It was really sad. So again, just be really careful. Make sure that you have someone that's credible, that has a credible background and all of that. So there's great courses out there for DIY and doing it. Again, it just takes a little longer. So there is the opportunity cost, right? The longer it takes you to get your book out there, you may have missed out on some clients or things like that. But if you're tech savvy, then it might be the way to go.
Right. Right. So, when you help your clients, then you're basically helping them walk through every step process of getting their book all the way to publication. And then do you guys also, if they want, help them promote it, put together a publicity plan, those kind of things?
Yeah, definitely. So we always say, like, a lot of publishers, like, we publish your book. Good luck. See you later.
Right.
So we do what's called a book marketing roadmap, and we want to have a meeting with you, and meetings, I should say, of what can you do with your book for your business? Let's come up with some of those strategies. Who are the top 10 or 20 clients that we want to do that foot in the door strategy with? Where are other things that you can use your book and how to get your book going? But I will say every one of our publishing packages come with a bestseller campaign. So we're launching your book to hit bestseller. That's our goal. Our big goal is to be an international bestseller. So that's what we've hit 100% for our authors, is to hit that bestseller list. Because again, you get that. So we come alongside of you. Connie or Stephanie Chung, I'll use her again. She goes, you know what I liked about working with you is that I feel like I didn't just have a publisher, but I had a business partner that was going to help me through this whole process. So that's, I think, what we're known for. And we say that you become part of our family, that we want to walk alongside you. We also offer social media. So we can do social media for our clients. We do content marketing where we'll turn your book into blogs and articles and videos and infographics. We do book awards. We do websites for our authors, because some of our authors aren't branded and they need a separate website for them as an author. And it's important to have things on your, even if you're using your business website, you need to have like a really tricked out speaker page, which we do that, a tricked out page to buy bulk sales of your book, which is a whole nother conversation. Um, so, so we've tried over the years to develop all the different things that authors want. Cause we used to say, hey, well, now you need social media. You need to be doing all these different things. And they're like, well, who does that? And we went, well, here's some recommendations, but you need to do that. Don't you have a team? No. And they'd just be overwhelmed. So we decided to create that for them because they already had a relationship with us. And then it was just easier to have it all under one umbrella.
Wow. Wow. Talk to us. You've had your career spans, to such, kind of interesting chapters. When you were a newscaster and you were learning, that end of the public speaking, and then fast forward to, you've done a TEDx talk, those speaking skills, do you feel like those came naturally? Did you have to work a whole lot at it? Did you just have to, jump into situations that made you uncomfortable just so you could kind of get there? I know a lot of our listeners are in that boat where they're going, oh, I'm never going to be a professional public speaker, but I know I've got to push myself to get more opportunities where I can public speak. Would love your thoughts and some encouragement to our listeners when it comes to that speaking.
And it can be nerve-wracking. So here I was a newscaster, not in both markets at the same time. Actually, I was in Houston and satelliting to Detroit at one time. And then we started our podcast, and I'm comfortable, like in this situation, really easy for me, no problems having a conversation. But then it's like, oh my gosh, I got to get on stage. Like it's just me. I feel like it has to be so structured, and you know, it's scary. And even just having me and the camera by myself freaks me out. So I've had to work hard to be just me and my phone talking to somebody. And I don't know why but it's just a different thing, a different animal. So I'm going to tell you a lot of it is, especially if you have a book, your book is your speech and your speech is your book. Stedman Graham, who Oprah's boyfriend, he's known for being Oprah's boyfriend, but I've heard him speak several times, and it's always a chapter out of his book. And it's almost verbatim. He starts with the story that he started, like I talked about the chapter thing. He opens up with the story from there and then goes into, and when I read his book, I'm like, this is the exact speech that he said. So that all goes together. And I also say, like, your podcast is your book and your book is your podcast. It all ties in together. So I think it's having that, structure of an opening story that you can tell that connects with the audience. And it's a story that everyone can relate to. It's not a story that's out there. I can tell a story about, I'm a gardener. So I have my garden over here on the side of my house. And this 2 years ago, I had to move my tomato plants. My tomato plants always did pretty well. But then all of a sudden I moved them, not because I wanted to, but I had to move them. And all of a sudden they were triple in size, triple the amount of tomatoes, right? But sometimes, like in life, you have to be moved and it's actually better, even though you don't want to move, but you moved and made a change in your life. So almost everyone can relate to gardening or having to move. Like, it's like, oh yeah, I've done that. Like, something that's general that everyone can relate to is to start out with and have those kind of stories in there. I think just makes people comfortable. So reflect on some of those stories that can be in your speech, but can also be in your book, right? So I always say, like, your book can be the cornerstone of your brand. You can repurpose that content in so many ways. We equal it to like 10,000 social media posts can be from your book. You can have probably 24 blog posts, 24 articles, probably 20 or so infographics that you can create from there. If you have 10 chapters, you can have at least 10 speeches from your book, maybe even more than one speech out of one chapter from your book for that content. And I would say just get out there and do it more. One of the things I did recently, because I'm like, all right, I'm going to start speaking again. So I decided to practice in front of my camera, right? Just put my camera, my phone up. And at first I was like, oh, I don't know, that makes me feel uncomfortable, but I thought, duh, I can erase it. So just start talking and then just erase it. So another speaking tip is when you do that, practice in front of your camera, record it. Then when you go back, I want you to listen to it 3 times. One time, just listen and don't watch. Just hear the inflection in your voice. Does the cadence go up? Does it go down? There was an actor that I listened to recently. He came to speak at a conference that I was at, famous actor, and he's written books that have turned into the series of movies, which I can't remember the name of, but they're on Lifetime. And when I was listening to him speak, the cadence of his voice where he would slow down and really make a point, and then he'd get excited and it would be loud and fast, and it would be quiet, and he had all these different cadences. So just listen and say, do I sound the same the entire time? Or do I sound interesting? Then I want you to just watch yourself and turn the volume off. Look at your physicality. How am I showing up? Does it seem awkward? Am I using my hands like way too much and flailing my hands everywhere? Am I not using my body language at all? And then the third time, watching everything together. So I think that'll give you some really good tips for that, to just do it and just practice, and then get small groups. Start small. Neighbors together. Hey, I want to practice my speech and see what you think. If you have a connection group, a networking group, ask if you can talk in front of them. Just start small and build up, and then you'll build up that confidence.
Wow. Melanie, this has been absolutely amazing. I mean, you have given us so much to think about, so many great practical tips. I feel like we could do episode, a whole series, you and I, because I have so many more questions I'd love to ask you. But before we let you go, I'd love to ask you some rapid fire questions. We ask all of our guests, do you have a favorite speaker? Somebody that you love, just captivates you, great content, someone that you just highly recommend?
I'm going to go back to my original mentor who taught me how to publish books is Mike Koenigs. He has podcasts. You can catch him now. He's a really good speaker.
I love that. Is there a podcast that you listen to, either guilty pleasure or development, that just fills you up, one that you'd recommend?
Mine, Elite Expert Insider and Elite Publishing Podcast. So if you are interested in writing a book and publishing a book, there's tons of information on the Elite Publishing Podcast and the Elite Expert Insider, where we interview experts on different topics for entrepreneurs and business people.
I love that. And is there a book you'd recommend? Every leader, if you don't read anything else, you've got to read this book.
I have been listening. I've been doing a lot of audiobooks lately, and almost everyone talks about Think and Grow Rich. It's on almost everyone's like the must read for every leader, every business person. And I was just thinking to myself today, I'm going to go back and reread that book. I'm going to promote that people should go back, if you haven't read it, to read it. And if you have, it's probably been years, go back and read it or listen to it again.
I love that. Definitely. Where can we send people to find you online? They can get more information about your business, all the things that you do.
EliteOnlinePublishing.com. And there you can find our Instagram, our YouTube. There's tons of information on YouTube. We do a lot of videos. Our LinkedIn, Facebook, we're everywhere on social media. TikTok, we're everywhere.
I love it. I held off on TikTok for the longest time. Actually, my 19-year-old and I were at odds because he said, "Dad, you don't need to be on TikTok." And I'm like, and then I went to a mastermind in the mountains last month with 8 other business owners, and they're like, "You've got to be on TikTok." So now I'm on TikTok. So
you know what happens is the young people go on first, and then they don't really want us on.
Right.
Then remember, Facebook was young. Then the old people went on and they're like, we're not on Facebook
we're
anymore.
Out. Yeah.
And they're on Instagram. Now old people are going on Instagram. So now they're on TikTok, and they're like, please don't ruin our TikTok by you old people being on there.
Yes. Well, Melanie, I can't thank you enough. This time today was so valuable. We can't wait to promote your book, Strategic Writing System, in the Speak with People Facebook group. Can't wait for our listeners to be able to digest this episode. And thank you so much for just your transparency and how easily you just teach others. It really is a gift. So thank you.
My pleasure. And I want to encourage you all, if you have that book inside of you, you've been thinking about writing a book, just go after it. Spend an hour a day, half hour a day, whatever it is. Keep writing.
Well, thank you for joining us on another episode of the Speak with People podcast. We hope that you were encouraged. We hope that you were inspired and challenged to improve your communication skills. I want to thank you again for being a part of the Speak with People podcast community. Make sure you don't miss out on being a part of the Speak with People Facebook community group. Just head to Facebook, type in Speak with People, scroll down and join our community, because every single day we're encouraging each other, we're helping each other to improve our communication skills. Thanks again, and we'll see you in the next episode.